Have you ever felt like life just got too quiet? Not the quiet of an empty house. It's the kind of silence that starts inside you when you realize time is running out and no one ever told you what to do with what's left. This video won't promise you comfort, but maybe it'll offer something more valuable. The chance to understand that this emptiness you feel isn't weakness. It's a calling, a dark, urgent, but real calling for a late awakening that can still happen. Waking up at 63, 67, or 74 hits differently. Your body's heavier, the routine's not the same, the days feel shorter, and still, there's something no one tells you. The soul doesn't age. It just gathers dust like a forgotten mirror. You get out of bed, look around, and realize that the house you've lived in most of your life now sounds hollow. The furniture's in the same place. The photos are still in their frames, but there's something strange there, a silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels like absence, like some part of you left and never came back. You try to distract yourself, make some coffee, turn on the TV, walk through the yard, but the noise of the hours can't drown out the sound coming from inside. A silent sound no one else hears. Only you, only someone past 60 gets it, and it's in that silence that it shows up. The first ghost. It has no face, but it brings questions sharp as blades. Is this it? Was that really all? Did you live what you wanted? Or just what was possible? If death knocked on your door tonight, what would you have left unfinished? These questions don't come to hurt you. They come to cut through the numbness. Because like Jung once said, the greatest danger isn't death itself, but the life you didn't live because you were too afraid to face it. Picture yourself walking down a dark hallway filled with closed doors. Each one holds a piece of your story. A love you never lived because you were scared. Truth you hid just to please. A dream you thought it was too late to chase. You walk past those doors every day, but never open them. And in the meantime, time keeps ticking. Jung called this the shadow. Everything you repressed, denied, ignored, but that never really left you. It just waited. And now, at 60, 70, or even 80 years old, it sits next to you at breakfast in silence. The same silence that follows you through the hallways of your home, not to scare you, but to ask, do you still want to really live? Or did you quietly give up? This first ghost, it's just the beginning. It didn't come to haunt you. It came to remind you that there's still time, but the clock, it's ticking louder now, and the silence, it already knows your name. If this woke something up in you, leave a comment. Just write, I'm here. So I know you heard me, because sometimes what saves us is simply someone knowing we're still here. The silence of an empty house. When loneliness screams louder than the TV. Have you ever noticed how the TV sounds louder when the house is empty, like it's trying to drown something out? It's not the news that bothers you, not even the volume. It's that silence between the voices. It's that subtle echo that answers when you say, hello, and no one answers back. That's the moment when many people look around and realize they're alone. The kids grew up, the friends moved on, the neighbors aren't the same anymore. And the mirror, oh the mirror, it no longer shows who you were, but keeps asking who you've become. Jung once said that in the second half of life the soul starts to whisper, but only those who are quiet enough can hear it. The thing is, silence hurts. It rips open the unresolved memories. It brings back old voices, forgotten traumas, and that deep nagging fear of having been forgotten too. But what if I told you, this silence isn't the end? What if that tightness in your chest, that emptiness echoing through the halls of your house, is actually the call, not a punishment, but an invitation? Jung believed that after 60, life starts speaking a new language, a symbolic, spiritual, deeper language. It's like the soul is clearing the ground, trimming the excess, calling you to a meeting, not with others, but with the self. And that's where many people get lost. They mistake silence for abandonment. They confuse loneliness with failure. But listen, that emptiness you feel, It's not a hole. It's a womb. It's a fertile space, waiting for rebirth. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it hurts. But even butterflies have to face the darkness of the cocoon before they can fly. You can choose to see the empty house as a tomb or as a temple. You can hide from the pain or walk through it, like someone crossing a bridge from what was to what can still be. The TV will still be there, but maybe just for today, you can turn it off and listen to what your soul's been trying to say for so long. It's not asking for just any company, it's asking for you. Now tell me, have you ever felt that kind of silence, the kind that screams from the inside out? If this stirred something in you, write in the comments, I'm listening. The ghost of regret, the nights when your pillow feels heavier than your age. Some nights you lie down, but you don't sleep. It's not insomnia, it's judgment. It's when the pillow becomes a confessional and your mind turns into a courtroom. Every memory becomes a witness, every silence from the past, an accusation. You close your eyes and see everything you should have done, what you should have said, or what you never should have accepted. And the worst part, you realize time doesn't go backward, that some hugs can't be given anymore, and that certain words stayed stuck in your throat for decades. And now, there's no one left to hear them. Carl Jung said that everything we avoid facing in our youth comes back in old age wearing a new mask. That's why after 60, some wounds seem to grow a voice. It's not madness, it's the shadow. The shadow is everything you swept under the emotional rug, things you didn't want to see. Parts of yourself you pretended didn't exist, to fit in, to please others, to keep up appearances. But now, with time running short and the silence growing deeper, the shadow sits next to you on the bed. It doesn't scream. It whispers, "What if? What if I had followed my dream? What if I had asked for forgiveness? What if I had said no? What if I had chosen myself?" Most people run from that voice. They turn the light on, shift positions, pretend they didn't hear it. But Jung faced that shadow head-on. He believed regret only exists when the soul is trying to show you what can still be healed. Yes, the past can't be changed, but the way you carry it, that changes everything. Because regret, when listened to with courage, can turn into a compass. It points to what matters now. It shows you the kind of life that's still possible, without masks, without empty obligations, without unnecessary weight. You don't need to get over it. You need to integrate it. Shine. Light where fear once lived. Bring out all the things you left behind, like unread books gathering dust on the soul's bookshelf. And the good news, there's still time. As long as there's life, there's choice, and the most powerful one is this: don't let your pillow speak louder than you. Now let me ask you, have you ever had one of those nights? A night when the past came back like a ghost? If you have, write it in the comments. I carry things too. The light no one sees, when the end of the road reveals what was always hidden. Maybe you feel like you're reaching the end of your career, the end of your strength, the end of being needed. That's what people say, right? The golden years. As if it's some consolation prize for surviving time. But let me tell you something dark, and at the same time freeing. The end of the road is where the soul starts speaking louder. When Carl Jung studied the Tibetan Book of the Dead, he wasn't obsessed with dying. He was fascinated by what gets revealed when everything that once distracted us fades away. In the language of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's a moment after death when the person sees the clear light. It's not like sunlight, it's a revelation. Everything you were and everything you pretended to be dissolves, and what's left is the whole of you. Now think about this with me. What if that moment didn't have to wait for death? What if at 60, 70, or 80, when the world finally quiets down, when your kids have their own lives, when your work no longer demands your presence, when your body doesn't run like it used to? What if, in that silence, you could finally hear what's always been inside you, but got buried. You know that. Restlessness you feel, that nagging sense that something is still missing even after all these years. That's not failure, that's a calling, the call of the self, as Jung would say, the center of the psyche, the core that's begging to be brought into the light, not to fix you, but to return you to yourself. You know why? Because ironically, it's when you feel most fragile that you are most free, free from vanity, free from judgment, free from expectations. That's why so many people bloom late in life, because only after losing everything that seemed essential do they finally discover what truly matters. So hear me, you're not at the end. You're standing at the threshold of one of life's deepest, most beautiful journeys, the journey back to yourself. The world doesn't prepare us for this. Medicine doesn't teach it. Families often stay silent, but Jung left us a map, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead drew the doorway. Now it's up to you to step through. If this stirred something in you, drop a comment and say, "There's still something in me," because there is, and it's about to awaken. Facing the ghosts, what you repressed in life won't disappear with age. You thought time would make it fade, that if you just got old enough, you'd forget. But the body is no perfect tomb, and the soul even less. The grudges you swallowed, the traumas you buried, the fears you hid even from yourself, they didn't vanish. They were waiting for the noise of life to die down, waiting for you to be quiet long enough to finally hear what you never wanted to hear. Carl Jung knew this. He said, "What we refuse to face always returns. It comes back as chronic pain, as nameless sadness, as a kind of sorrow that no one else seems to understand." And in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, these ghosts take shape. They're described as gods, monsters, terrifying visions. But Jung saw deeper. These figures don't come from the outside. They're pieces of us, broken, distorted, begging to be seen. Have you felt it? That old regret knocking at your door at night, that face you never forgave, that version of yourself you buried alive because it didn't fit what the world expected of you. Well, they're still living inside you, and with time, they come knocking, not to destroy you, but to offer one last chance at freedom. That's the dark beauty of growing older. You can finally face what once paralyzed you. Yes, it'll hurt. Yes, it'll be uncomfortable, but it's real, and the real has power. Jung called it shadow integration, the process of embracing the parts of you that you denied, the ones you were ashamed of, afraid of, or too guilty to acknowledge. And the more you resist them, the more they turn into nightmares. But when you welcome them, they turn into strength, into wisdom, into legacy. You want to grow old in peace? Then stop running, start listening. These ghosts aren't here to haunt you, they're here to set you free. And if that spoke to something inside, you'd leave a comment, "I recognize my shadow, and let's turn this silence into redemption." The final revelation: death is not the end, it's the mirror. You spent your whole life trying to make sense of it all, the work, the family, the losses, the victories. But now, at 60, 70, 80, you feel life slowly slipping away, like sand through your fingers, and along with it goes your certainty. What's left is the question, what if it all ends like this? What if there's nothing after, that silent ache in your soul, the one that creeps in during those cold, sleepless nights, when the ticking clock feels like it's mocking your very existence? You try to distract yourself, try to think of something else, but the question always returns, persistent, raw. What awaits me after my last heartbeat? Carl Jung stared that question right in the eyes. He didn't offer easy answers. He didn't promise heaven or punishment. He did something deeper. He said death is the most honest mirror of life. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, every soul passes through symbolic mirrors after death, reflections showing not how others saw you, but who you truly became inside. And Jung brought that vision to the West, raw, profound, and transformative. The way you die is an extension of how you lived. If you ran from yourself, death will feel like a chase. But if you found yourself, death becomes a reunion. It's like the final breath opens a portal, and what walks through that portal isn't what you owned, but who you were. That's why some people die in anguish, even surrounded by comfort, and why others leave in peace, even with so little. Do you see it now? Death in Jung's vision isn't punishment, it's revelation. And that changes everything, because it means there's still time to shift what really matters, to heal what still bleeds, to awaken what's been forgotten inside of you. Yes, death is coming, but not as an executioner, as a mirror, and the reflection you'll see, you're building it now, this very second. So the real question isn't what comes after. The real question is, who will you be when everything ends? If that question stirred something deep in you, write in the comments, I want to truly see myself, and let's walk through that mirror together. The expansion of consciousness, when the end reveals what was always hidden. There's a moment, almost imperceptible, when everything that seemed fixed comes crashing down. Certainties, routines, your own reflection in the mirror. It's the moment you realize you're going. But strangely, something inside you is waking up. Jung called this the expansion of consciousness, and the Tibetans describe the same phenomenon in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. When the soul lets go, it doesn't fade away. It sees everything. No filters, no excuses, no ego. It's a clarity that can tear you apart, but it can also set you free. It's like being in an empty theater, and suddenly all the lights switch on. You see the backstage, the stage, the actors, and finally, you see yourself. You're no longer the role you played. You are the one behind the gestures, the words, the fears. This is the true awakening. And the most unsettling part? This expansion doesn't have to wait for death. It can happen now, this very moment, in your quiet room, in your tired body, in your restless heart. According to Jung, the end of life is the point where the ego begins to crumble and the soul finally breathes. That's why so many people after 60 start to feel something changing inside. You feel you can't fake it anymore. Social smiles grow tiring. Time demands truth. It's the soul's call to step out of the shadow. It's the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming whole, even when fragmented. It's not light, it's scary, but it's real. And above all, it's liberating. If you felt that expansion inside you, even for a second, leave a comment. I'm awakening, because that's the first step to dying without fear and living with everything. The encounter with the shadow, everything repressed, returns before the end. There comes a moment, maybe at 63, maybe at 70, maybe in the quiet of a Sunday afternoon, when you find yourself surrounded by everything you've avoided your whole life. Old wounds, hidden shames, sins swept under the rug of memory. It's as if, with age, time places you before a mirror that no longer lies. Jung called this the encounter with the shadow, that part of you that was ignored, denied, silenced, but never disappeared. It just waited, quietly, patiently, like a child left alone, in a dark room. And then, when the noise of the world begins to fade, it knocks on the door, and you feel it in your body, in your dreams, in the guilt that appears without explanation, in the longing for something you can't even name. It's hard, it's unsettling, but it's necessary, because there is no liberation without this confrontation. The Tibetan Book of the Dead already said, upon crossing the veil of death, all repressed mental forms come to life, not to punish, but to be recognized. And Jung reinforces, aging is not decay, it's a sacred opportunity to integrate the shadow and become whole. But here's the truth that few dare to say. Many run from this moment, and that's why they leave in despair. But those who have courage, even if they tremble, end up discovering a strength they never imagined having. It's the strength to look at yourself without masks, to forgive what seemed unforgivable, to say, yes, I did that, and now I embrace it. You can spend your final years trying to keep up appearances, or you can use them to reconcile with everything you have been, and maybe, for the first time, find true peace. If you felt that shadow stir inside, you'd be if some memory touched your soul as you listened, right here in the comments. I recognize my shadow, because only those who recognize it can finally rest in peace with their eyes wide open. The invisible rebirth, what remains, when everything inside you has died. After the storm comes the void, not the despairing void, but that kind of silence that scares you, because you realize you are no longer who you used to be. You've passed through the shadow. You cried what needed to be cried. You lost what you thought you couldn't live without. And now you're here, sitting, looking at a world that seems the same, but you no longer see it with the same eyes. Jung called this a symbolic rebirth. It's not about shouting to the world that you've changed. It's about realizing deep inside that you died within. And now you're learning to live again, the right way, with lightness, with wisdom, with presence. Because when you age consciously, you begin to understand that the meaning of life was never in what was achieved, but in what you allowed yourself to comprehend. The Tibetans said that after the bardo of judgment comes the bardo of possibility, a chance to be reborn with lucidity, even if there are only a few years left on the road. And that possibility is here, now. Even if your body is tired, your spirit is awakening. Have you noticed? Conversations change, values shift. You start caring more about what truly matters. It's no longer about what others will think. It's about what you still want to leave in this world, even if it's just one last word, a sincere look, a request for forgiveness, or a hug that took decades to happen. This is the new birth, but it doesn't come with a party. It comes with silence, with maturity, with a soul cleansed, of one who has crossed their own hell and returned with a calmer gaze. If you've already felt you're in this phase, half tired, half quiet, but full of new meaning inside, write in the comments, I am reborn, because now you know the best part of life can begin when it seems everything has ended. The final crossing, death is not the end. It's when the soul finally comes home. And then, when everything has been felt, when the body begins to slow down, when the eyes look more inward than outward, the moment arrives. Not a moment of terror, but of surrender, of deep acceptance. Carl Jung said that death, for the mature spirit, is the last great symbolic act of life. Not a defeat, but a return inward, a return to the invisible, to the place where we came from, and that has always called us back. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this instant with a powerful image, the clear light, pure, intense, undeniable, the essence of being with no masks, but only those who have crossed their own darkness can recognize it, because it scares, because it is real, and most run from it their whole lives. But not you. You have come this far. You faced fears no one wanted to hear. You cried memories everyone tried to forget. You chose to cross the shadow with courage, and now, finally, peace is no longer a spiritual concept. It is a place inside you. It's no longer about waiting for heaven or fearing hell. It's about resting in the certainty that life was lived consciously, and even if there were mistakes, pains, regrets, it was yours. It was real. The soul that awakens at the end of the journey does not scream, does not run. It simply comes home. And maybe, finally, you understand, death was never the end. It was only the beginning of what you always were, beneath it all. If this touched something inside you, if any memory, image, or feeling echoed in your chest, write in the comments. I'm ready, because preparation is not to die. It's to live the time left with an awakened soul, a clean heart, and eyes that see the light, even in the dark. I hope you feel motivated to continue this journey. See you in the next video.